talk about science, technology, engineering, and math, we normally have a shortage or a shortfall of women practicing or going into those fields. And it starts from now, how do we begin to get girls in secondary schools to talk more about sciences? Because technically, depending on the culture as well, we believe that no, girls should do the sort of low lifting work and only men can do the heavy lifting work. So there's also that discrimination about women from the onset. So when you talk about it and grow into the educational space again, you find out that with a deficiency in science and technology knowledge, going into things like fintech, which is a combination of financial services as well as technology, so we're coming in with a fewer population in general. Now, when you look at it from the financial services perspective, there are also very few women who are staying in the financial services space. If you look in Nigeria today, for example, within our 24 financial services providers, the banks, you probably only have 2 female chief executive officers. And that gives you an indication of, okay, so women might be in the system, but how do they rise up the ladder and grow to the position of chief executive officer? The second thing is going to the technology space. Technology is an all-comers market, so we don't really discriminate in that sense. But then you find out that technology also needs some types of perseverance and diligence. When I was working in technology earlier on, 1 year, we had to stay in the office till about 4 a.m. Now think about it. I was a young woman having to be in the office overnight because we were serving a bank who had a system crash, and the bank had to open the next day. How many parents or husbands would allow their daughters to stay out working overnight? So generally, we find out that for women, you are limited in terms of the number of hours, you're limited in terms of the type of work you can do, and then as the demands grow, because when you're in a service provision perspective, your client doesn't close, so you cannot close. And then you have a husband that says, oh, you must make my food every night, my food must be freshly prepared, and those are the challenges. So within the fintech space in Nigeria and Africa in general, we find out that there's about 39% of women across Africa, and this was a study done by a company called DFI, who work in fintech teams. And then you raise that and say, okay, how many are in executive positions? The number actually increases to 43%, going back to what Nadu said, in that women are good for business, but sometimes we don't see it early enough, and we don't build and mentor them for leadership positions.
Having been in technology for so long, there are 2 key challenges I had to face. The first one was the gender bias. So you go into work and people don't treat you the same way as they would the men. So some of the really fun projects that we would have to do that would require a lot of work, a lot of thinking, meeting with senior leaders that would give you the opportunity to grow if you were successful, were taken away from me because I was not one of the boys. And they thought, oh, it's too complicated. Don't go into that. Just, do what you're used to. Just do all the side work and we'll deal with the bigger things. So that was one of my biggest challenges. And to break through that, I just always forced my way in and just never took no for an answer. My other biggest challenge was getting into technology. I didn't have enough female leaders that I could look up to and reach out to. Starting off really early in my career and with the help of my father, I learned the importance of having many mentors. So having a mentor circle with people from different areas and different perspectives that could assist you, like my father, who's based in Nigeria, and he has that Nigerian perspective, and my uncles as well. But then from work, having to see a person I trust and I believe in, and a senior leader, and reaching out to them and saying, oh, you're female, you're in technology, you're the first one I've seen. Would you like to mentor me? I would get the women start drawing back and saying, oh, I haven't done that much, I don't think I can help you. Whereas with the men, it was more like, oh, you look up to me? Sure, let's do this. Let's book meetings, let's work together. And that, I feel, has helped me in my career because I have really gotten the male perspective of everything I do. So when you'd be afraid to take a challenge, the men will be like, why not? why not do it? Whereas with women, it's like, oh, I'm not capable. And I'm like, yes, that's true. You're not able to do it. Just stick to something you're used to. So for me, it's having a good mentor circle around me of cheerleaders and sponsors who'll be able to kind of propel me forward.
As a woman, I can't change who I am. And as a woman, it comes with a certain stereotype. So when you are in an industry like banking, right, it's extremely critical to break that stereotype. And what is the stereotype that's attached to being women, right? I'll give you a simple example. I'm a mother. I have a 13-year-old. If my 13-year-old needs me to go to school for something and I have a meeting and that's urgent, so it's crisis for my 13-year-old and I have an urgent meeting, right? If I go and tell my supervisor that, oh, I need to go to my daughter's school, that is it. I'm playing into the women's stereotype. I'm playing into the fact that, we aren't as committed to our jobs like men. Now, imagine if my husband did it. His supervisor would think he's being supportive, right? So you can't change that. It's how you handle it. And what I've done and my recommendation to all women out there, right? You can just move a meeting by a couple of hours. You don't need to get into details, right? You can say it's something personal, but if you play into the women's stereotype, you're not just adding to the challenges you face, but I can guarantee you all those other capable women out there, you're going to add to their challenges because the stereotype just keeps getting built. The single biggest challenge in fintech is the old fintech. We have brilliant legacy systems, but what we don't have is a system that enables us to quickly adopt to all the tech transformation. And it's this gap that I felt as a banker myself, as someone who felt the pain, I could address by creating Enterprise Tiger.
Okay, what would you say accounts for your success in just 2 years? You set up your company in 2015, and in 2 years you've done remarkably well.
Yeah. So, we've been...
And then what are your challenges as a leader?
Yeah. So, we've started existence April 2016. We've been around for less than 2 years, and we've been successful. We've opened markets in South America. We are here in Africa. We have our own sister company that's based in Nigeria. We're very bullish about the Nigerian market. I would attribute this success to not being afraid of taking risks. I truly believe that the challenges across developing countries was the same. I truly believe that I didn't need to build a technology in Silicon Valley or in Bangalore and restrict it to that particular geography, right? So the minute you believe that geography is history, you open the market and then you open the multiplier effect. I'm going to address the next question, which is the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge to growing further is to have leaders on the top who are willing to bite the bullet. Everybody talks fintech, right? But how many people do you know in the mainstream banking who are actually already adopted disruptive technology? Everybody is waiting for that one person to take that leap, test the waters before they start jumping, right? So the single biggest hindrance is that leader who's willing to take that leap of faith.
As in with the incumbents?
Yeah, and you don't need a new company to come in. You could have a mainstream bank with a dynamic leader who believes in it and who takes a leap of faith. You have to get your first customer. You have to prove the use case before you can multiply. So that's the biggest hindrance.
Women are good for business. They're good investors. They're good for as fintech consumers in their own, because I think there's a saying that goes, if you invest in a woman, you invest in the development of the family. The woman will take her savings and invest it in education, invest it in health, and in the well-being of the whole family. And that's what we need to build on, because it is in the growth, economic growth, that we need to drive society in general, and it's going to come from women. Women are very trustworthy. They are the ones that form the savings groups and stay in savings groups. So at that level, women know how to come together and bond together to build each other up. But as we rise up the corporate ladder, there's also the flip side. that women are sometimes the ones that don't support one another in the corporate space. So we need to see ourselves not as competitors in that sense, but we need to see ourselves in a more collaborative space and work together, realizing that the more women we can put in the corporate ladder, the more women we can have on boards, then the better sanity there is. Women pay more attention to detail than men. In product development, women are more empathetic than men. When men are more task-oriented and product-oriented, but the women would be like, oh, how does it feel like? What will the person feel using this product? So we need the virtue of all those talents and all those attributes to come into our products and services. Because yes, technology is here, technology is accessible for everybody, but if we go back to the previous panels, the awareness is still not there. And so there's a missing gap. How do we close that missing gap? A lot of our women are our trading women, right? And they are in their offices, which is the marketplaces. How many of us are taking products and services to those marketplaces? How many of us are taking awareness building campaigns to those marketplaces? Because if we ask them to come to our branches, then what that does is that you're actually taking away some of their economic activity time, and they want to earn as much as possible. The second is some banks are getting this now. They're actually going out to the women. And some banks are now focusing on how do we develop women-based products. And they're taking their products out to the women, taking their campaign activities to the women and their awareness-building activities to the women. And once you begin to do that, you begin to see a turnaround and a shift. Another challenge we need to address in Nigeria is the fact that a lot of the financial services institutions open branches in marketplaces, and 99% of the people trading in marketplaces are women. A lot of these women carry their babies on their backs and have their children around them, but they want to go into a financial services institution. The woman with a baby on her back cannot get through a dead man door. So already we're saying and sending a message that we don't want you in our institutions. And it's little stigmas like that, those unspoken cues and unspoken norms that we put in place to ensure that women are not there. But these women, whether you like it or not, are trading and are very liquid. They're trading in cash every day and they're turning over cash every day. So how do we bring some of those into the system to ensure that we can reduce the cash out of the banking system, achieve our cashless goals, and also ensure that there is a larger credit pool for lending, because we're talking about high interest rates. So it's a recursive circle, but the women are at the center of it, and we can't ignore it.